you were listening last week, you know that this is a two-parter episode. This is the second half of our 200th episode where we were going back to our roots, doing a traditional kind of Lifehacker show, even though the last one started off with a lot of tangents, as it tends to these days. But we were going through, like, here are some tips, tricks, apps, services, etc., things we're excited for in the future that are coming that we don't have yet. Those sorts of things we are going over all of what we've kind of discovered lately that has changed since, I guess, the old Lifehacker days when we were constantly finding new and useful tools. These days, it's, people have settled into what they like more, and there's a lot of new stuff, but, once you like what you like, you stick with it because it works. So we're looking at some of that new stuff, some of the things that we're using, even if it's not 100% the newest. So some of them, maybe you've heard of before. Hopefully there are a few things in here that are pretty good, but we're continuing that today. And I just want to remind everybody, if you have anything that you are using or anything that has helped you do work better or do really anything better, it doesn't have to necessarily be work, but that was, that falls into that Lifehacker category. Please visit awkwardhuman.com/supercharged and let us know about it, and we'll talk about it on the next show, actually. Perhaps the next show, since if you take that call on the first episode, if I remember to say it, then it's not on the next episode. This is the next episode. But now that we're wrapping this one up, that's enough of me talking. Let's go to me and other people talking, so we can finish up part 2 of the 200th episode special, also known as episode 201. But because I got that for free with, I guess I can move on to one of my app recommendations, which is the multi-tool app, Set App, the subscription service. I think I recommended this in the past.
Oh yeah, I've heard of them.
But yeah, I've it's basically replaced buying software for me. When I was going through today trying to figure out, what would I recommend? There are not very many things that I use that aren't in Set App already, and they keep adding them, and I talk to them about, like, here's my wish list. I'm just sending this. If you guys don't do this, if you don't care what your customers' wish lists are because it's too complicated to keep track of all that crap, I totally get it. Although you could put it in Airtable and keep track of it that way. But you can get all these apps. I told them, like, I think aside from 2 of them on the list, one of them being ScreenFlow, which is another app I highly recommend.
ScreenFlow is good.
It's just gotten so much better too, and I've been able to do some editing stuff in it that is just I say this not to toot my own horn, but to that, like, I've been able to push the software so far, and do things that are, like, people don't usually believe can be done in ScreenFlow. That I give the credit to the app for that, for being that good.
Speaking of video editing, so I switched to Windows years ago. You know this.
Good for you.
Final Cut 10 you liked?
No, Final Cut Pro, the old one, is what I used on the Mac. Final Cut 10 didn't come out until after I'd switched to Windows.
Yeah, that's
true. So I've been looking for a video editor for Windows that was like Sony Vegas, just like was a completely different way of working with video clips that I hated.
Yeah. Premiere is actually a lot like Final Cut 7.
Finally found one that I love that is basically the Windows version of Final Cut in terms of just like the paradigm and like what the different shortcuts and stuff. They're all the same. It's called Davinci Resolve. It's free.
I'm so glad that you did that's your recommendation. I've been trying to find someone who uses it because I've wanted to know if it's good.
It's good. I like it a lot. I mean, it's mostly used for, in like professional settings for.
Yeah. It looks great.
At least fully featured enough for me. It may not be the same but for a free program, it is mind-blowingly good. And It works just like Final Cut in terms of the old Final Cut in terms of just how you. For $0. I was just blown away. I love it.
I put it in an article at some point. I can't remember if it was dedicated or not, but I mentioned it at, like, towards the end of the Lifehacker days, and I always wanted to try it, but, like, it takes a long time to really dig into video software, and
it doesn't take that long with this one.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, like, there are it's not that hard to, I guess, just jump in and see that it can do stuff. It's more of like I have to go through and test very specific things that I need to know if it can handle all of these things that I want to do, and is it going to help. And I think like I've been meaning to try that. I've also Richard has a bunch of video editing projects. I want to move him over to something else because he's been using he was using ScreenFlow, but because of the enormous amount of video he was editing, it was crashing a lot. And ScreenFlow is really bad. Yeah, I mean, like it's ScreenFlow 7's way better at it, and it's not slow with MP4 files anymore. So that's a huge bump in the right direction. Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And the thing is, it's like they have some pretty complex, there's a pretty complex feature set available in it. And if they would just add video plugins and allow transforming of objects on screen and comparable to how After Effects does it, that would fix all my issues with it, other than that it's buggy, but that it's a telescreen product. Okay. So video plugins are not. Video plugins are a big ask in the sense that it's hard to maintain once you open the doors to that. But they do it with audio units already, so it's it might not work that well. But just having that option in there would be really nice. But that one I can live without. It's the thing that takes me out of ScreenFlow the most is not being able to do transformations.
Right. And that's the thing that seemed like a big ask to me.
That it's actually not, because you can. It's very, very close to what After Effects does. It's just you can do only the rotational options on there are X, Y, and Z, but there's nothing that allows you to skew or distort.
Oh, I see. Okay. So they already have some transformation features, just not all.
Yeah. You can do most anything. It's really just when you have to change the perspective of something in a way you should be able to do with XYZ transformations, it doesn't work in ScreenFlow as well as it does in like really anything else I've ever used. So I know it's something that they can do because it's available in other products that they have. So it's I think that's a matter of time. So I'm not worried about that one. I'm looking forward to ScreenFlow 8 because 7 really, I think, paved the way to it being a like killer video editor. And motion graphics tool. I do a lot of motion graphics in ScreenFlow just because it's so fast to do the kind of stuff that I want. If I need to do something with more effects power, I mean, it always looks better in After Effects if I do it in After Effects. But for some of the stuff where it's just like moving a bunch of objects around in a certain way on the screen, if I don't need complex tweening, ScreenFlow can do it in a minute, whereas it would take me a half an hour in After Effects to do the same thing.
Right.
So if I can do it in ScreenFlow, I do it. I would love it if they had a few more things, and I would love it if I could get some video effects in there that currently are unavailable. But those limitations really pushed me to develop an aesthetic that works in ScreenFlow, that I can apply really easily and quickly. So it's done. I wanted to recommend ScreenFlow specifically today because it changed the way that I work and get things done in a way that's so fast, and it's getting more expensive, but I think it's only like $129 still, which is really
still
cheap
cheaper than most editors, except Davinci Resolve.
It does. I'd rather be Final Cut 10 does some of the things that I need ScreenFlow to do sometimes. So that's it's hard to say that.
How much is Final Cut 10 these days?
$300.
Okay.
So it's hard for me to say that you should get ScreenFlow over Final Cut 10 because it definitely depends on a use case. And if you're not going to edit a feature film in ScreenFlow, you could do it if you used other apps for other things. I mean, like I've edited some stuff that people don't believe I edited in ScreenFlow, which I love that. I love being able to do that, and just be like, this looks like I did it in a professional program, which is not to say ScreenFlow isn't professional, but it's not made for video editing explicitly. It's for screencasts. But it's like I can make something look really polished in there, and it doesn't cost a lot. But then you could also make the argument that Davinci is a professional tool, and it's free. You could make the argument because it's very clear that
because it's true.
You could make a polished feature film in Davinci and not pay money at all. So there's a good argument there. I just like ScreenFlow that it's drop in and go. It's just when you need to save time. Yeah, it's great. It's worth all the bugs that it has, which they are eroding as we go. I just want to offload a couple of really quick ones so I can let you guys finish up the category here. The Notes app I've been using, just to go back to that really quick, is the only thing that I've stuck with consistently for whatever reason is Notefile, which is a menu bar app for just putting plain text notes in. I kind of just use that as a scratch pad and find lists, and every once in a while I lose them, like what Whitson recommended. I haven't figured out where I put that one yet, but there's it's Mac and iOS, so you have to be on those platforms to really get a lot of use out of it. But it syncs; it's really good, and it gets the job done. And if anyone remembers, my first week at Lifehacker, that was the first article I wrote. Was I wanted a menu bar notes app, and no one had made one, so I fashioned one out of a Fluid. Fluid was that thing that has a site-specific browser.
I remember Fluid.
Yeah. It was great. It probably still is great. It's less useful now just because of probably Electron, and that people can deploy these really simple apps that are basically site-specific browser apps but feel a little bit more native. It's like when you need an app out of a website, Fluid is a great way to make that happen on a Mac. But there's anyway, Notefile kind of did it properly, and I've stuck with it forever. So I feel like that deserves mention. Setapp kind of fills in the entire. Setapp has a little bit of everything. It even has a ScreenFlow type app that I would have jumped into probably had I not already been obsessed with ScreenFlow. And then on I don't have anything on the phone. I actually couldn't find anything on the phone other than, I guess, Notefile that I really felt was a big helper. I try to stay off my phone when working. But but Adobe Illustrator Draw on the iPad is my favorite drawing app so far, using that cheap iPad with the Apple Pencil. And Adobe Illustrator Draw has really been cool, aside from just being able to post fun time-lapse videos of the drawings on Instagram, which has been a fun part of it for me. It's like, I was able to spend like $400 some on a drawing setup, so I don't have to hire an illustrator. Now I can do it all myself because it saves so much time just being able to draw right on there. Like the Microsoft Surface Pen, I liked a lot, but I could never get quite the precision I wanted. In the Apple Pencil, despite its lack of features and other problems, it really just feels the most like drawing on paper. So those are yay for me. But Tommy, I don't think other than Slack, you've contributed an app yet. So
yeah,
we should go to you next.
I use
Tommy just lives in Slack. It's the only app
I do. That's all I use ever. Full screen. That's my life. I have a Slack phone. I use Google Keep to keep notes. I used to use it to organize stuff, but now that I've gotten so busy with different projects, I use Trello now in conjunction with it.
I don't know how you both use Trello and like it.
You don't. What do you not like about it?
Mostly that it's horizontal, but I feel like it just gets cluttered and hard to find stuff really quickly.
You are correct.
Yes.
When you have a lot of lists, it just becomes absolutely terrible.
Yeah, and most people I know who use Trello or have used Trello hate it, and so it's unusual for me to hear.
In my own personal case, I only have 4 columns, so it works out perfectly because that's the exact width of my window. But as soon as I go beyond that, I'm like, this sucks.
So I haven't found an app I like better, only because
Why not Airtable, Tommy? You can't get that on your. They don't have the Kanban view on your phone. That's
here's the reason I use it is because I like having a mixture of PC connection with my phone, and I want a widget that can keep track of everything, so I can look at a glance what I need to work on right now.
Yeah, so that's oddly what I use Notefile for.
Trello's widget is really helpful because it syncs up with my obviously the Trello boards, and I can sort by due date. So if Airtable or other things had a widget view that could sort things by due date and calendar stuff, but not on Android app widget.
Widget like on your screen.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought we were
like this.
I was thinking figuratively.
No, like an actual widget that I can see and scroll with that keeps up to date.
Yeah,
so that's
they should
the
do
helpful
that.
thing.
I don't think they will, but they should do that.
It's helpful for me. Widget support is not often touted as like a big thing for Android, but I like it. So that's one of the biggest things. I have a calendar from like Google Calendar, but then I also have one that's separate for my tasks. So I like that. So Google Keep I use for like just taking and jotting down notes and having things. So like pulling up Keep, I have at a glance saved everything from little notes. And what I'll do is I'll clear stuff out I can get rid of. and then keep things pinned. Like I have an ongoing list of jokes that I find funny. But if I hear a joke I like, I'll keep a little keep list. And then I'll use the Drive and Sheets as well. My Google Drive stuff is a little bit cluttered now. I need to clean that out. So dialed into the Google ecosystem. I really wish they had a Trello competitor that I would use. But their Tasks app, which I used last week, is just not good. The app is cute and clean, but their web interface is old and clunky. If they had a Trello competitor, I would use it.
I'm wondering if there's a way to like fashion an Airtable version of all the stuff that is missing from Airtable in terms of a Trello user wanting it, because like the widget, like that's a thing that I mean, like I would want something straight up. Like I've built dashboards for Airtable because I mean not for Airtable the company, but for Airtable the platform, because I wanted a dashboard. I keep doing it. Our podcasting system now runs on Airtable. Everything gets integrated. And there are a lot of great automations. But displaying it in the way that I wanted wasn't possible through Airtable. There were too many limitations, but it was also really easy to do it through the API. Yeah. So I'm wondering like how hard. I don't know how widgets are built on Android, and I'm sure
there's no Airtable widget available because I have the Android app for Airtable.
Yeah, but I'm wondering like can you make a widget that's just like HTML and CSS and JavaScript, and like have people plug in their API key potentially to configure it? I don't know how.
It's got to go through the app itself, so it would have to go through Airtable's
an app attached. You can't just buy a widget.
No, it's got to go through the app itself.
Well, I suppose you could have an app that just connects to the Airtable API.
In theory.
Yeah, I mean, like I've seen third-party people. Sure. I mean, third-party apps and plugins and stuff that do that sort of thing with Airtable stuff. So I'm just wondering because one, they should do it, and two, I might want to do something similar. Obviously not for Android. Well, maybe not obviously, but I mean, I'm kind of fine with. I've come to terms with the fact that I'm stuck in the Apple ecosystem. There are things I really like about Android as well, and I probably would have been just as happy with Android had I started there. But since I'm on Mac and tied to iMessage and blah blah blah, it's the pains of switching platforms.
I've been switching back and forth between them a little bit, and they both have their pains a little bit.
You can't, and I decided I'm picking the iPhone because then I'm not buying phones all the time. And then I don't have to keep doing that, and like I was ready to make the jump over to Android because I thought at least I'll have a headphone port. But now that that's off the table, with the I mean, obviously you can get an Android phone with a headphone port, but
I finally got a pair of wireless headphones.
Yes. So one, I wanted to actually ask you about those because I was thinking about getting some, and then I was like, well, I don't need them yet, so I shouldn't spend the money on it until like they have a sale or.
I spent like half the money on these.
Yeah. Okay. You got to tell that story also, so you can talk about OfferUp.
Yeah.
This was interesting. This was great. So
was this on Craigslist?
No, this was eBay, but it's slightly more complicated than that. So I was trying to find like a really good price on these, and none of the prices.
Can you just explain what OfferUp is really quickly? Because
So OfferUp is kind of like Craigslist, but designed around mobile. Mm-hmm. People can see that here it is. So like it's all right. It doesn't have as many like users, and people on it are even more annoying than they are on Craigslist. But I don't think amazing. The prices are so.
Yeah.
Main laptop right now is a ThinkPad Chromebook that I love. ThinkPad Chromebook 13.
That's cheap.
Like it's a really solid laptop, especially because it's got a lot of the ThinkPad quality, but it cuts a lot of costs because it's a Chromebook in terms of just like software and stuff. So you don't.
I love Chromebooks. I wish I didn't.
I finally love Chromebooks. It took me a long time, but I'm on board.
I'm really I want to use them all the time, especially like I don't like the super cheap ones just because the trackpad or keyboard there's some component that just
yes, exactly. A lot of the super cheap ones are really bad, which is why the ThinkPad hardware has always been so good, and lately they're just like killing it.
Yeah, Yeah, and the new Pixelbook, which is way more expensive, so don't
Way more expensive than it deserves to be as a Chromebook.
Yeah, I mean, like if they gave you the stylus with it, and the stylus didn't have like a 1 second lag behind it, that's what it feels like. I'm sure it's shorter than that. Then I'd be all for it. But that platform has a little work to do to get to the point it needs to get at there. But it's a lovely machine. It's really nice. The keyboard's amazing. The trackpad, I wish, had like a little bit of a lip at the back of it, so you're not like constantly accidentally moving the mouse. But it's really, or the cursor, I guess. It's not a mouse. But it's a beautiful piece of hardware. Google did a great job with it. I really love Chrome OS because it just kind of works. You don't have to worry about stuff. It's like it's jumping into those, like when I have to edit video or
editing video and images is still.
Yeah, I mean, even images, like, yeah, like it's such a great writing machine. But then if I could guarantee I was just going to take a laptop to write with. But then, there's the whole luxury of having multiple laptops problem.
So I also have a Windows laptop.
What kind?
It's just that I was going to get a Windows ThinkPad, which would be like $1,500 for a good one. Instead of doing that, I got the ThinkPad Chromebook for like $100. And it's pretty solid once I swapped an old SSD into it. And it is like my laptop for Windows testing. Luggage if I'm going to Michigan for 2 weeks or whatever, it serves that purpose. And so I have two laptops that were much, much, much cheaper than buying one that would have served all my needs.
Yeah, and you're not much of a laptop person anyway. I'm unfortunately.
Why do you hate them? I just got a new one. Mine died, so I got a Surface laptop, which I love.
You like it? I hear so many mixed things about the Surface line.
The Surface laptop is amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like it was just really the reinstallation of Windows, or the making Windows not.
Yes,
crippled.
the only pain is at the very beginning.
Because Windows 10s.
Yes, which is a pain,
Yeah.
but thankfully it was an
That's
easy
that.
switch. And once Windows shit is done, you're back on Windows Pro. It's fine. I love it. It's great.
That was always like really. I was really skeptical about that.
I was skeptical
like,
too.
This is gonna get.
I'd walk by the kiosk, and see the Windows Store and see it and touch it, and be like, "This is interesting," but I love it. It's phenomenal.
It seems to be. You said, I think you might have said it was stain resistant.
It's supposed to be stain resistant, but honestly, it's comfortable. I like it. I've cleaned it a few times. It's great, and I would recommend it. And the Surface laptop is getting a lot of positive reviews. The Surface line of other tablets and things are not. So this is, I think, their first one where they've really hit it out of the park.
Yeah, I think the Surface tablets they haven't really pushed much with. They've kind of like let that sit and not innovated with that. Which
I think they're pushing a new line soon. They're kind of hinted and tipped their hand. They're going to start pushing that very soon. So
it sounds like they're going to have a cheap Surface to compete with the iPad. Which I think is great. I think if they can get the
categories.
Yeah, but I mean, like if the Surface can work for drawing in the way that the iPad works for drawing. That would make, and for a long time it was the best. It really was, and I liked it, and it was good enough. But this low end iPad. Well, I am definitely going to get a Pro when I can justify doing that / want to dump the money on it, because I'm finding that the number of strokes that I tend to put into a drawing is so enormous compared to what most people do in this program. I mean, like, I really, like, I do my textures like almost like pointillism. So it's a lot for this app to remember, and I've gotten it to crash quite a bit. And so I've had to start doing pieces.
Like intentionally?
Not intentionally, but I know when I know when I'm getting to that point, because it, like, I'll zoom out and nothing will happen, and I have to wait like 10 seconds for it to continue. So I don't know. This may be a problem on a Pro as well, but I'm guessing less so because it has double the RAM and it's faster. So I think it's just a memory issue, and I have a tendency to demand more out of electronics than they're willing to give me, and not out of desktops usually, but out of, like, I expect mobile equipment to do more than it can. I really like to push it, and I get upset that, like, I can't run a bunch of stuff in the background and expect battery life to be 10 hours. I know why. I just don't like it. I don't agree with it. I think like the system should work better to manage that stuff so that it's not constantly allowing it to ping when it doesn't need to.
Yeah.
But I don't want to have to manage that manually. That's just absurd. Otherwise, what's the point of even having it? But I also don't need battery life that much. And now that we have USB Type-C, I can plug it into an external battery.
God, I just wish that would be more widely adopted. I was annoyed that there wasn't Type-C on the Surface laptop. I just want that to become more widely adopted.
Yeah, I think it will. I think we need a year or two, and we'll probably see it on most things.
Adopted faster.
Yeah. Yeah, it's too late for you now. But maybe down the line. I never recommended Airtable officially, I guess, in the apps and services
I think
category.
that goes unsaid, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just realized that I neglected that one. Now, I mean, like that's kind of the obvious thing, but I was actually really looking for services that were vital to me that were online, and Airtable is kind of the one that I've just, probably because I do work for them, but I've really funneled everything through that because it can do so many things. So I really love it for that, because you can just kind of, it stopped me from switching through apps. That's why I was trying to avoid saying that earlier. It stopped me from switching from app to app to app and just sticking with it, because when there's something I don't like, I can fix it and change it. But and then another one was the stock service story blocks, which I don't like recommending that sort of thing where it's just like that's more of like buying a product. But it's been instrumental. Like I couldn't have done half the stuff that I've done this year without them, because it was so affordable. And you guys probably know this already because they sponsored us before. Not sponsoring today. I'm saying this out of the kindness of my heart, or because I believe it, or whatever. Not because I'm getting money. But I want to throw that out there. Before we move on to tips, does anyone have any other apps or services they want to add to the pool? I'm
good. Everything else I use is old.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt. It's like I feel like a lot of the stuff is either built in or we know about it. We've known about it for so long that it's not as much new stuff out there. But Whitson, you're finding more of it than I am. So I
not on purpose.
Well, maybe not. I mean, like, you still write about some of these things, so I just need to I need to keep up on that better. But I'm building out this dashboard on Airtable, so I get that it'll pull in the stuff that I want to pay attention to and notify me of things, and then I can have a big screen that I look at when I want to know what's going on. That's my end game for organization, but that's kind of a side project because it has to be. But tip wise, Whitson, you want to start us off with your tip?
Tip is actually an app or service, but I wanted to use it also as a tip that kind of goes with it. And this is kind of a tip for freelancers, because one of the things that I started, as I'm kind of getting into this freelance thing, I'm realizing, some of them pay much more than others, some of them pay much less, but some of the ones, they all clients based on how much they pay me per article or per word or anything like that. I really need to judge them based on how many man hours I'm putting into those articles for the money I'm getting back. So a little bit differently than I used to. The old Lifehacker readers might remember the article I did on rescue time years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Using an app called Toggl, Toggl. It's more of like a project tracker. And I think it's probably common among people who are billing for certain hours. I'm tracking time for when I'm writing this article or working on this project. So then when I'm done, after an article is submitted, each one took and what I got paid for it. So then in like this last column, basically, it's showing me what my per hour rate was for that article. So, just because I got paid the better paying client if the lower paying article took me a quarter of the time,
Yeah, I'm just curious, because if I had to guess based on not knowing any of the other ones that you're working for and how it shakes out, is popular science one of? Oh, you probably shouldn't say this live.
I probably shouldn't say it live.
Yeah. My
what
guess
I-
is popular science is one of the better deals, but we'll leave it there. Mm.
Popular Science is, I love working for them.
Yeah,
And
I just remember
it's
it
a
being
blast.
so pleasant.
And I'm
That's
getting
why
to
I say
do
that. Mm-hmm. Ooh.
I would say easier because it's stuff that I can do in my sleep, right? It's like how-to guides for computers or whatever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Stuff like that I can just
yeah.
like bang out because it's just,
Mhm.
you know, those tend to be the best paying projects, whether it's for Popular Science or PC Mag or whoever. Again, it's not so easily.
And do you find that like the joy that you get out of the work tends to be more out of the better paying ones, or it varies?
Depends on the day. Depends.
Yeah.
Variety, because I really love doing those how-tos, even though they've kind of become easy. You know, they don't challenge me in the way.
Hmm.
You know, it's been a few years since I've done. I'm trying to think of something that's been published, so I'm not talking about articles that haven't been published yet. I did an article for a popular. On studies that show that run music or exercising with music can actually make you perform better.
Hmm.
I'm doing like reporting on these articles, like the New York Times. I'm doing interviews with people for stuff, and that's really fun. And it's rewarding in a different way, even though it takes a little bit longer. So I like having the variety.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
and that's like that when you were saying that, I think it's a really good idea what you're doing. And then I was trying to think about it, like if I did that, I wonder what that would look like for me, because I feel like a lot of the time, and first of all, it depends on the day and what I'm feeling like. Some days I'm just stupid. I'm just really. I hate to make this reference because I really am disappointed in this season of The Flash. Not that it was ever like a quality show. Is definitely those CW comic book shows are a guilty pleasure for sure. But The Flash was like much more solid when it started. This season's just been weird. But Harrison Wells loses his intelligence in the season. And when I was watching it with Richard, I was having the same thing. Like I felt so dumb for the last.
I feel like this today.
It's like, but I mean, I don't know how far it's gone for you today or any day that it's come up. But it was like, I would go back into code I wrote, or like math stuff and science stuff that I'm working on to learn, and because I like it. And I'd go in and I have all these notes, and I'm like, I remember doing this. I remember understanding it, and I'm reading it now, and I'm like, what the hell? How did I figure this out? How do I know this? Because I don't know it right now. And it comes back. It's just like, there are certain days I'm looking at this and I'm like, this is somebody else. This is not me that did this. And not me right now anyway. and it's super weird. And so I had, like, normally it's, sometimes I'm just not in it, and then I don't think about it in such extreme terms. But this was like 2 weeks where I was just not, my brain was just not operating at peak capacity. And it's fine now, but like, I like, that's where I want to live all the time. I want to be that smart version of myself all the time. Not for the sake of the obvious, which I'm having trouble articulating, but because it's fun. It's more fun. Yeah, it's just like it's exciting to accomplish something rather than sit there and feel frustrated.
Yeah.
So there's, I like that, but so but I wonder, like, sometimes, a lot of the times, the things that I like the most are the most time-consuming ones and tend to not relate to making the most money. And so, as much as I appreciate the most efficient money makers in certain areas, I guess it goes. Well, I mean,
that makes sense.
Here and there. I mean, it's like, in this case, maybe because I'm talking about doing videos, but I'm also talking about, like, I'm doing like a lot of support videos for Airtable right now, which are not online yet. But not that anyone really gives a crap about those. But I really like doing those. It's been kind of fun to like try to instill a feeling into something that's normally really boring and show some excitement over it in the way that I legitimately feel excited about the feature set that I'm talking about. I try to give him a personality, try to create a style around it. Like I really like doing that, finding narrative qualities to imbue a otherwise dull topic with. Bless you.
Thank you.
So there's, I really like doing that. It takes a really long time though when you're figuring that out. I've gotten it down to more of a formula, but the more I do that, and the less that I'm experimenting, the less I'm gonna like it. And it's also hard to find time to do the voiceovers. Like I never want to sit down and do the voiceovers. I'd rather someone else did it, but I also feel like no one's gonna get the vocal, I don't want to say quality, because I'm certainly not the best when it comes to voiceovers, but like the genuine love for the platform that I have is not going to come across from someone who's hired to talk, you know? And so I want to do it for that reason, because I feel like I can get that across. I don't know, it's hard, but I think I really sidetracked that one. How does toggle work?
It's really simple. It's a very small window with a big start button. And you just type in the project. You can assign different.
Cool.
Flex.
All right. Tommy, do you have a tip ready to go?
Yeah, for me, the best way I've learned is I don't like doing like the Pomodoro technique or things like that.
Mm-hmm. I
But
just want to, but
yeah, it's good in theory, and I tried it when I was at Disney, when I was at a desk job. But for my line of work and everything, it's tough because I don't have like long periods of set time where I sit still. So in order to get organized, I found that I have and this is different for obviously everyone, but for me, getting into a flow of like being able to focus for periods of time and feel like I'm being productive and also tasking everything I need to get done. So I use Trello for keeping track of my major tasks, but some of my tasks are like a long slog of a project that I've got to spend, several hours a day designing and like chipping away at. And that can be really hard to jump into. So I always make sure that I go through and I can spend like 10 minutes, quote unquote, warming up the creative process, where like I inch into it, because jumping right in can be tough and discouraging. So what I'll do is I'll reply to a few emails that I know are simple and require less than 5 minutes to respond to. And I'll do those first. And then I'll do like a quick, just like fun 5-minute like brainstorming session, or like freeform like drawing. There are a few like Zen games that are very simple, like pixel sand, or things that are just like simple little ways of doing stuff. So from there, I'll go through and do all that stuff. And then giving myself like a 15-minute warm-up, and then I'll dive in. I found I'm much more productive when I do that first as like a warm-up. And I envision it the way that people, when they go running or they exercise, they warm up. This is my warm-up into getting in that thinking.
Yeah, I think that's I don't do that in a way that is quite as specific or good as what you just described. But like when I remember how to get myself going, I mean, like sometimes I'll draw in the morning, but that's usually a double-edged sword, because then I'm like, I have to finish this elbow, and that sounds ridiculous, but I will spend 20 minutes on an elbow, and then I'll think like, oh well, now this area looks empty, so I have to at least start that, and then it just creeps and creeps and creeps. So I'll lose an hour usually drawing in the morning if I do it, but yeah, like I think that's it. Getting started is often the hardest part, and it's good to work your way in. The problem with me is I get sucked into whatever it is. So if I answer a couple of quick emails, then I'll get stuck in that. Brainstorming, I like that for my weird brain, because I think that might be a good way for me to get excited about what I'm about to do.
Yeah.
And not something that I won't stick in my own head for too long, because I'm, one, always in there a little bit, and two, it's like I'll be thinking, and then I'll want to actually do something, and not want to. I want to like use it as a launching off point. So I think that I could definitely use. I like that. I wish I had the rest of what you have though. That would be nice if I could stop. I'm bad at stopping.
Oh, the other thing I like to use is I really like to use Gmail just launched it, but it was in Inbox, which is the other like kind of work focused productivity tool for Google Mail. But Gmail has it now, but snoozing, where I will clear out. There's just for me a psychological thing when I have an overwhelming inbox and like overflowing list of things. So being able to organize my tasks where I'm ignoring ones that even though they might come up later, I can ignore them and put them off. I take pride in the fact that I try to respond to anyone that writes to me, any task that's given to me, I try to get done. Obviously the ones that are paying, that are jobs, are more important and I prioritize. But the ability to literally get it out of my sight and have it pop up later to a different date. So I use the snooze feature judiciously and often. So I like that when I can even task when the emails will pop up, so they're not even cluttering my inbox. So being able to schedule and just have that stuff in a smart way where I know how I think knowing yourself is probably the most important thing for me, is knowing how I work. And I can try to force a certain strategy, and I'm sure both of you have tried this too, where you can keep trying something and it just does not work. It's like, well, it's like putting trying to put a square peg in a round hole. It's like, I know it would never work. So knowing myself well enough where it's like, okay, get out of my sight. It'll come back next week. I'll deal with it then. So being able to put stuff off like that is helpful.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I spiral and just do things in a really random order and not a helpful way.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. I'll wrap us up with a highly specific tip. I feel like mine's out of the odd one out.
Specific.
Yeah.
Oh well, but yours is you guys both have like, here's how to work better, and mine is just, here's a Hackintosh tip. So I think yours will help people more. But I was just building another Hackintosh, and the nice thing was, because Apple, like I with the broken iMac, it didn't need to be replaced, but it's been kind of difficult using it as the podcast machine because I have to keep switching in and out of users, and has limited disk space, and like Dropbox is syncing to both users. So it was, anyway, lots of problems. It doesn't matter what the specifics are. So I needed to replace it at some point, but I kept looking at costs for Macs, and it's like, if I wanted to get another one of these 5K iMacs, first of all, most of them aren't faster than this one, even though it's like 4 years old, and it's and like getting a custom one is very expensive. But no matter which one you get, unless it's custom built, you're stuck with 8 gigabytes of RAM. You have to either add RAM yourself or upgrade it as a custom machine. There is no iMac that you can buy off the shelf that has more than 8 gigabytes of RAM in it.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, right? Because like they have laptops like that. I mean, it's like, why is this the machine that doesn't have 16 gigs of RAM? I can understand like the entry level, but all the other ones should. Like 8 gigabytes is not enough. Of course, I accidentally bought 8 gigabytes of RAM for the Hackintosh, and I fixed that yesterday. But I was looking at it and I was like, oh crap! Did Fry's give me the wrong RAM? Because they screwed up a lot of stuff when I was trying to get the parts. But that was my fault, so I have to go return that myself now. But I was able to take that old Bitphoenix Prodigy case that had been lying around. I really just needed a motherboard, a CPU, and the RAM. I had everything else. I had a 1 terabyte SSD that I had repurposed for this when I tried to build another Hackintosh in the past. And the reason the other one didn't work out so well was, one, because apparently the system doesn't work that well without a discrete GPU. I didn't realize that's a thing now. I just learned that yesterday, and so it was coincidental that I didn't have problems due to using integrated graphics this time around. And like a lot of people don't want to use the GPU because they're so expensive because of Bitcoin mining or cryptocurrency.
Thankfully,
mining.
that's coming to an end.
Yes, thankfully. I actually got a really good deal on a GTX 1060. I mean, it should be cheaper than it was by like maybe another $50, but it, the fact that I could get it for about $200.
The fact that you can get it in a store at all.
Yeah. So that was nice. So I was able to get one of those. It was EVGA, which is always nice when those are not the most expensive card. It's actually the least expensive card for a change. And so that worked out well. I was able to kind of build a machine for like $700 instead of $1,500 for a much crappier machine. That would be an iMac.
The beauty of Hackintoshing.
Yeah, and I just don't have $1,500 to spend on an iMac, and I was like, what am I going to do with this? I have to replace this desktop soon, because there's a lot of stuff that gets done on it that I can't consistently like run background tasks and whatever on this machine, and the server that's downstairs is too old, blah blah blah. The main thing though is like apparently there's this GPU problem now, but the main thing was like getting the App Store continuity, handoff, iMessage, all of those services.
Yeah, those are tough to get working these days.
Yeah, well, this is the tip.
Haha.
It is a huge pain in the butt. I actually did get it working on the last one, but the machine was so buggy, which I now know was likely because of the lack of a GPU. And I ended up returning everything. That machine, which cost more, it took the whole weekend just to do iMessage, I think, and then it wasn't perfect. It still glitched out for one reason or another. And it's a really in-depth process that I'd love to complain about, but that's like a 30-minute description. So I won't. But the remedy for this is you can actually just buy a really inexpensive Apple authentic Broadcom. Broadcom's the supplier for pretty much all of Apple's Wi-Fi and Bluetooth cards. They come in an M2 card format, and if you're building a machine that has more than one PCI slot, you can get an adapter, put it in the PCI slot, and have it act as a Wi-Fi card that way. Or you can get it's already an M2 card, but you have to get an adapter for it to plug it in. It doesn't have the same connection situation. Yeah, it's like the little notch in there, instead of having two notches like most of the wireless cards do, it has one and it's in the wrong spot. But you can get an adapter for like $15. So for $40 you can create a replacement. And I got this, and they said it's the easiest way to make Tony Mac, TonyMacX86.com, the best Hackintosh resources as far as I'm concerned, is a they said that it's the easiest way to make Bluetooth and Wi-Fi work. And OS10wifi.com, you can buy these prepackaged, but it costs like $120 for it, with all the adapters and like ready to go out of the box. But it's not a big deal to find the stuff once you actually. There's not a good description of what what works with what or how it's supposed to go. But you get the adapter, you get the card, you plug it into the motherboard, presuming the motherboard will handle it. My M2 slot wouldn't, so I actually had to remove the existing Wi-Fi card after I built the whole machine. I had to like unscrew all the stuff and then unscrew from beneath the motherboard the Wi-Fi casing to get the card out. And then my Wi-Fi card was too tall with the adapter, so I couldn't put the top back on the case. But I did get it to work. I plugged in the antennas. It's like having a native card, and it cost $40, which is about what it costs to get a Wi-Fi card anyway. And that doesn't do Bluetooth.
Message work?
Yeah, because Apple recognizes it. That's
crazy.
I almost didn't check, because if you try to sign into iCloud and all that stuff, by doing by like just trying it, and then it fails because it knows that it's not authenticated hardware with Apple, it ends up being something. It ends up not really working. And then you have to like undo all this crap to get it to work again properly. But with the card in there, I was like, I'm just going to take a chance and see if it works, because this is going to save a whole bunch of time. And I signed in and everything worked.
That's nuts.
So much easier. So like anyone who's building a Hackintosh, if you care about any wireless or networking services at all, or just not even having to do a system definition, I mean, it takes out the majority of the work. So do it. I don't know why this isn't like all over Tony Mac right now. I mean, they have a lot of posts about it, but it like in the build guide, it doesn't mention it.
That's crazy.
It mentions that, this is the easiest way to get Wi-Fi and Bluetooth working, but it doesn't say anything about all the other stuff. It doesn't say that in their idiot's guide to iMessage. It's just it's they need that prominently on there. But yeah, it saved me a big hassle. I was able to get the machine up and running in like an afternoon, so as opposed to 3 days, which last time that's what it took, and it didn't work well. So there you go.
Awesome.
We should probably wrap it up, because I don't know why I thought this would be a short podcast. This is how it goes with Whitson and I.
We could use Pomodoro technique right now.
Yeah, but before we go, if anyone's looking forward to something that's not out yet, that they're hoping to use soon, what is it?
Well, I'm using Android P right now. I finally got on the developer preview with my phone.
They fixed that for you.
Yeah, they finally fixed it. I think the issue is T-Mobile. Yes, I'm finally on Android P. It's interesting. It's clear they're going to go with the Pixel 3, that there's going to be a notch because they've divided up notifications where it all used to be your stationary ones are on the far right. So the clock and a lot of your like cell signal was on the right. Now the clock is on the left, and they've limited how many notifications will be on the left. So it's clear that they're trying to, deal with the notch. But
I like the notch. I don't know why people think it's a problem. I think it's kind of cool.
I don't mind it. But what's interesting to me is the idea of trying to help. They're trying to clear and one angle help with productivity. So like split screen and gestures are coming into play a lot more. They're still buggy, but I'm intrigued to see where that goes. And the do not disturb driving mode, I like. The ability to have different modes automatically detected as you're moving. So I'm intrigued to see, based on the features here, where it goes, because I will definitely be getting a Pixel 3 when it launches in the fall. And I'm intrigued to see, my other hope is that wireless charging comes back. So yeah, I'm intrigued. I think they're trying to make Android a better and more intuitive system that kind of anticipates needs. They're obviously pushing machine learning in a big direction, and so I know battery life is an issue. I have a Pixel XL. My battery life sucks now. I can probably get about 14 hours of usage out of it as opposed to a full day now. So the ability for Android P to have machine learning actually tell what apps you use and when to use them and when to like not have them drain battery is interesting. So it's active now and it's intriguing. It's not long enough for it to kind of assess my ability to use stuff, but I'm intrigued if that's the case, if it can actually really mitigate kind of battery hogging stuff and really adjust to your usage. I'm intrigued to see if that's going to go somewhere.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we'll just have to keep updated on how Android P is coming along.
Yeah, whenever I get an update for the developer preview, which is usually about once a month or so, I'll update you guys.
Cool. Whitson, what are you looking forward to?
They have anything at the moment?
Nothing. The future's bleak.
No, I'm kind of still trying to get up to speed on some of the present stuff because I when I left my last job.
It's like you got a divorce and got divorced.
Kinda. So I'm working on catching up to the present right now.
Yeah, well,
I hear this thing
I'll have
called
an iPhone to sell you in when the next round comes out. Because I'm 3 years. Mine's old. Like I gotta get a new one because I can't do, even the battery case is having trouble recharging it.
Right now, I just have my mother-in-law's old iPhone 5.
Oh yeah, this is a big giant.
Wow.
6S Plus, or I don't know what these are.
I hear this thing called the internet is going to be taking off soon.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah, if presuming it remains fair and equal. That's always something to worry about.
As long as we get planes and vaginas, I think we're fair.
Yeah.
And it comes full circle.
Vagina planes. Well, it has to if they're vagina planes.
Exactly.
I get what I'm looking forward to. I guess this goes without saying that I'm looking forward to the Lyrebird API.
Oh, so yeah.
I won't go into that. I won't talk about that again until it's out, at least in depth. But I found out about this thing called Lobe last
LOBE?
week. LOBE.
Like an earlobe?
I think like a lobe of
or
your
brain.
brain.
Lobe. Oh, yeah.
Because it's a machine learning tool, but it's visual, so you can actually create training data. It's mostly visual, which is, on one hand, really great in my case because that's where I'm kind of lacking. I like that I haven't put much effort into learning the visual stuff for machine learning because it's hard enough doing the language parts that like I don't have the time or the brain power to like I'm barely making progress on that on my own and then to add visual learning too that's too much. It feels kind of like an automator type app. It's a web app and you have to go on the beta wait list if you want to try it right now. I'm on there. I was kind of hoping that they would push me through it faster, but I'm always hoping that. It rarely happens. And they and you can basically create machine learning data, but you can also have them host it, and you can use them as a back end for an app or whatever. But you don't have to have programming knowledge. Like you can actually create training data and a machine learning service without really knowing a whole lot. And I think that's pretty awesome that it gives people a way to understand conceptually how it works, actually do something practical with that knowledge. So you're learning and creating at the same time, and then you can do a lot more if you know how to write even some basic code, or understand programming enough to understand like the code snippets they give you to integrate into things. But I think it's just a really cool way to allow people to get into machine learning. I haven't used it yet, but I'm looking forward to using it and trying it, and hopefully it's as cool as it seems. but we'll have a link in the show notes to everything I can possibly remember that we talked about today. So you can all go check that out. Hopefully it's a lot of good resources, and we might have to split this into 2 episodes because it was so long. But
it was a good one.
It was a good one, yeah. We did it. And that's normal for the 200th, at that mark. Like we've done that for both the 100th and 200th episode of Awkward.
Yeah, just pretend.
Yeah, we're gonna. Okay, done. It was on purpose, you guys.
Swear.
All of this was.
Also, I love Pocket Casts. It's a podcasting app.
Oh yeah,
Me too. I've been using it a lot lately.
It's
that
great.
was
And,
my favorite on Android.
and they just sold. I don't know if you noticed. They just were bought by NPR, and the company.
I did see that.
But
that's interesting.
Yeah, they're my favorite podcasting app, and I hope they keep developing cool stuff. And their FAQ about the sale is hilarious because people are like, "OMG, this is the end of the world," and they're like, "LOL, don't worry."
Yeah, LOL, don't worry. That's. I feel like one of the 4 attitudes that everyone has these days for everything. LOL, don't worry, you guys.
I think that's the big goal, is because people are convinced it's the end of the world. They're like, hey, we like this product and we're still going to keep making cool stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yay. Well,
Yay.
That's a good place to end it. Thanks for watching, listening, or whatever it is that you're doing with us these days. Especially now that we've reached, I guess, the 201st episode, perhaps.
Yeah.
At this point. But thanks for sticking with the podcast. Please write in if you have a question or something to share, something that you use that helps with your productivity or just do something better in life. You can do that, of course, at awkwardhuman.com/supercharged as usual. And feel free to rate us on iTunes. That's always a good thing. Or anywhere else for that matter. It's always been unclear to me what allows a rating. I know Google Play does now, but
yeah, however long that thing is going to be around.
Yeah, it's really hard to find podcasts on there. Same thing with Spotify, but Spotify, it's not that hard when you're on your phone, at least.
Yeah.
But Spotify doesn't let you rate things, so it doesn't matter there. But yeah, anyway, thanks for all of that. Whitson, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And we will talk to you next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Supercharged. If you'd like to send in a comment or a question, you can do so on awkward.email. You just go on your web browser to awkward.email. It's actually a website. And you can call or text 509-AWKWARD instead if you'd like to just skip all of that and do it from your phone. Also, if you'd like to check out some of our other shows, we've got a lot of great shows now, and we're having more every day, or, eventually. You can do that on awkwardhuman.com/podcast. Go check it out. We've got a lot of good stuff, and we hope that you'll be listening every week. Thanks.